Hi. Uh, a lot of courts and the police and different agencies, U.S. government agencies, they always talk about somebody is innocent till proven guilty, and we are so impartial. But in fact, nobody in law enforcement or in any kind of analysis, any kind of surveillance, any kind of way of knowing people really just goes by concrete evidence that's like jumps in your face. What actually happens, and I have been a security guard for many years, is that whether someone is conscious or subconscious of it, uh, most cops, guards, most government agencies, teachers, they they do profiling. They your mind is always going out and picking out these pointers, these little eccentricities or idiosyncrasies that the student or the suspect or the population they have. And this can also become automated, like there are devices or software that the camera looks into a crowd and picks out people who have outstanding warrant. Well, that's very much developed technology, but I think that a lot of psychic phenomena is similar like that. You always you're doing profiling. Your mind goes out and picks out all these character signatures. Anyhow, there was a very interesting event that happened, and I was reading about it. They were trying to find this bomber or terrorist. His name was Kaczynski, and he had done a lot of bombings and killed a lot of technicians and a lot of researchers. And he was he he had I guess a certain ego, and he wanted to be published. I don't know why would somebody go through all these lengths to get published. We can just do it with a click right now. You could just put out your video or ideas and go on and publish whatever you want. But then he wrote a kind of like a manifesto. I don't know how many pages it was, and he induced the government or cajoled them or threatened them that you are to publish this manifesto in New York Times. So what they did is said, fine, if you don't do some more bombings, we'll publish your manifesto. And they did. They published the manifesto, and what happened is that there was certain way of writing or certain repetition of words or characters or way of saying things, eccentric ways of expressing himself, that his brother picked it up, that he knew that this person uh, usually thinks or talks like that. So he tipped the FBI just from the text or the profiling or seeing this kind of signature over there and recognizing it. So what I'm trying to get at is that you could look at religious texts, like a Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, and Quran, or even, I don't know, I haven't gone with the Eastern philosophies like Upanishad, but probably there is some link there. but I know this from Quran and also New Testament. So you can kind of profile. You can get a really good idea who the hell wrote this stuff. Who thinks like this? Who uh, who has this kind of signatures profile? What kind of person would this be? Well, when I was in jail when I read the New Testament, and if you read the New Testament, you see that it's divided, and all the different disciples they wrote, recounted their experiences or their history with Jesus. So when you go through several of these books, and you kind of like in the back of your mind, you're like a certain kind of person emerges. It's like a profile. Well, actually, in modern times, a lot of spy agencies they go into big databases or big data and collect all these bits and pieces of information or markers or personality profile indicators on different people, and you could, in theory, and I'm sure somebody has done it, construct in the back in the computer a hypothetical person that when confronted with any situation will have a certain way of responding, and this is really a very extreme form of profiling. But this is not where I want to go with law enforcement or spying. What I'm trying to get at is that the spiritual text like a Bible or Quran, they were written or they were inspired. You can use any word you want, but the source came from a certain ghost, a certain consciousness, or you could call it God or universal consciousness, or I don't know. I have some suspicions that well, I was listening to Cliff High, and he was saying that there are like energies that come from space, and well, I don't think his ideas are very beneficial with spiritual teachings. Well, I'm one of those mediums can that can sense the energies or that are in a given experience or in a given place. And when you sense these energies that come from Christian or Muslim environment, it has a lot of very wholesome, very sweet sensation to it. Whereas energies that come from other sources, like from particular cult or group, they don't have that quality. They don't feel they don't feel as right, or I don't know. This idea must be experienced before you can kind of get to the bottom of it. But if you try to profile Quran, like look at it as if it's just a book that was written by someone, and try to figure out, hey, who or what kind of person would write such a book, and in fact, this is very telling direction that Quran has spiritual or divine origins. And it wasn't written by humankind. It wasn't something that somebody could like a prose make it. You have to you have well, I want to go into a part of it that's just the text itself. I had a video. It was called God is a mathematician obsessed with 19. Or if you take different chapters of Quran and just from the text, you see that it, there is a lot of manipulation with the number 19. The like the total number of chapters of Quran is 114, which is 19 multiplied by 6. Then the the numbers of the letters, for example, in Surah Ham, the first surah, is like adds up to a certain amount. Is completely divisible by 19. Well, Arabic um, is the just like Hebrew. There is the numbers assigned to each letter. When you add up the numbers in different surahs, you see that in 114 surahs, the numbers add up to whatever number they are, but they're all divisible by 19. Or maybe they're 19 multiplied by 19. Or they are 19 multiplied by 19 multiplied by 6. They're all like this. It's like extreme numerology. It's like somebody sat down with the what they call it, the quantum computer, and constructed these things. It's very artificial. Uh, it's not something that, say for example, I would have an experience. I would just like this. I'm expressing it to you, and then uh, I add up the numbers. They wouldn't come out to anything like that, and I couldn't manipulate it without having access to very sophisticated computer, or if I was a number theory mathematician. Well, just the addition and subtractions and divisions that has to do with 19. That's not the only thing. There's other functions there that are all manipulations of these different numbers, or they are to the power of third, or square root of this. And they are they are they are they're very synthetic. They had been constructed by some kind of intelligence that it must have had a lot of computational abilities, something like that. This is not a fib. This is something that can be verified, and this is also true in some ways with the Old Testament. I'm not Jewish, and usually I look down on Jewish culture and Judaism itself. If I was in the Iranian government, probably a lot of Jews will end up in concentration camp. But as a researcher, I look at this and I kind of say, hey, there is some evidence that these are similar to Quran. There is they might have the same kind of author, because there is a numerology that's very intense, similar to Quranic numerology. In fact, at sometimes the Iranian government invites representatives of many religions that are Abrahamic in origin, which means like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and they kind of discuss different aspects of these ideas. But this brings us back to this concept of profiling and looking at who wrote this text and what purpose was this designed for. Well, another idea or concept that's very interesting, and this is a poem that Sufi master was talking about, that he was saying that Imam Ali is really in hundreds of bodies, which means like he's a ghost, and this ghost comes in in many different bodies, and even though you look at this person, you wouldn't recognize him that he might be Jesus or he might be Imam Ali, but really the spirit or the profile, the copy of the original profile is that's what it is. Well, these ideas are kind of getting into very arcane parts of Shia religion. Uh, I'll go into more aspects of it in other videos, but I don't want to make it very loaded video. Then I might lose my audience. I have very few people that even can relate to some of these ideas, but just to be safe and not to lose the limited audience that I have, I'm just going to limit this video to here, and then we're going to pick it up in another section later on. Well, thank you very much for being my YouTube channel. Please subscribe and leave your comment.